And the last part that I want to talk about is kind of research. And this is really where there's a lot of different ways that you can think about using ChatGPT as your research assistant. There's a few different ways you can have ChatGPT pull fundamental data and provide trend and ratio analysis. This is the part where ChatGPT 4.0 has made huge improvements in terms of its ability to pull financial data and help you do some of the basic analysis, trend analysis of revenue and EPS. As you can see, here's a chart that I had ChatGPT built for me in terms of Marvell technologies and what the overall trend for revenue and EPS were over the past 8 quarters. It's a good starting point here. And the fact that it's able to draw a chart for me, draw a trend line just based on the input that I said. I'll show you the chat that I went through to kind of get that. Is a huge improvement. The previous ChatGPT version wasn't able to do any of this. It certainly wasn't able to pull data. It certainly wasn't able to analyze the data, and certainly wasn't able to visualize that data for me. So for those of you that are thinking, I need a way to help me validate things from a fundamental perspective, but I don't have the expertise. I don't have the time to pull the data. I don't really have the data sources do it. This is a huge leap forward. There's some nuances there, and I'll walk you through what those nuances are. But I'm really hoping to see this part of ChatGPT improve even further as they do new updates. But this is a huge leap forward in terms of everyone being able to access what is like institutional quality fundamental research just by asking ChatGPT some questions. The other thing you can do is have it summarize research reports that you might get from your brokerage firm. If you have an account at Merrill, you have access to all of Bank of America's institutional research, considered one of the best institutional research on the street. It's one that I read quite a bit. Jessica reads that quite a bit as well. And some of these reports are massive, but they contain a fantastic amount of information. So, the thematic investing primer that they recently just published on AI was 184 pages. It's really difficult to read a 184-page research paper. But what it does is you can upload the paper and have it summarize it for you. And you can ask it questions. What does it think about this specific thing? What does it think about that? What companies is it like in this particular space? I'll show you some of the chat that I have with that. And then another interesting way that you can do it is you can actually upload the Fed minutes to ChatGPT. Every single month as the Fed minutes are released, you can actually upload into ChatGPT and have it interpret the language and say, are there significant changes to Chairman Powell's language on expectations for rate cuts or rate hikes or all of that? These are all different ways that you can use ChatGPT to basically help you summarize financial information and give you the information that you really need. This is really where the world is your oyster. There are so many different ways that you can use this. Here is an example, right? I had pulled some of the research in terms of oil prices that Bank of America publishes. So there was a 50-page report that they put out on energy prices. And what I did is I didn't want to read 50 pages. I uploaded that report and said, can you provide me the summary of what their outlook is for oil prices in the future? And it gives me that projection based on Brent and WTI projections in terms of what expectations are, what market balances they expect, between supply and demand, refined products, what those look like, and what factors are influencing prices. So this is the stuff that I used to have to spend hours and hours reading these research reports in order to get the information that I need. Now, ChatGPT is able to basically summarize what I need in just a few seconds. And then if I need to dive any further, I can just ask more questions. This was the other one that actually, it was this one that I want to show you. This was the 184-page paper that they had on AI as an investable theme. And I basically said, can you help me summarize this following document? And it basically summarized for me all of the primary investable themes within AI and healthcare, infrastructure, sovereign play, materials and energy. And then I can basically ask it detailed questions. I can say what specific companies have they identified as investable with high exposure to these AI themes, and it's able to pull out the specific companies that are mentioned in this particular paper. And you can just talk to it like this is someone who's dedicated to you. Think of it as like a research analyst that's at your disposal, and you can throw anything at it, ask them questions, and it's able to respond to you, and it does it quite accurately, surprisingly accurately. So there's a lot of information that you can do here with this. Another one that I wanted to show you is this kind of trend analysis. So I really played around with this, and I spent a lot of time trying to figure this out. So some of the things that what we were doing was I prompted this to basically say, I want to run revenue and EPS trend analysis, pull the last 12 quarters of data directly from the SEC database, and convert those quarterly numbers into trailing 12-month numbers, and then help me run trend analysis for the past 3 quarters versus the last 8 quarters. What I wanted to know is, how's the last 3 quarters? Is it accelerating or decelerating versus the last 2 years? And what it does is it's able to pull the data, as you can see for Apple, from the quarterly revenue data, the quarterly EPS data. It's able to pull the data and then convert it to trailing 12 month automatically. Trailing 12-month basically smoothed out any seasonality because Apple earns most of its earnings and profits in the last quarter, around Christmas time. So using trailing 12-month number, it smooths out all the numbers. You don't get that lumpy data sets. And then it does the recent 3-quarter growth rate, the 8-quarter growth rate, and basically tells me that the last 3 quarters, grew at a faster rate or a slower rate than the last 8 quarters. And this is the type of trend analysis that I want to understand before I make an investment in a company, right? And you used to have to pull this data into Excel, convert the EPS data to trailing 12 months, or the quarterly data to trailing 12 months. Then you have to run your own trend analysis. ChatGPT is able to do all of that for you. There are some issues that I came up with. Sometimes it wasn't pulling the last 3 quarters. So I've even said that I've noticed there were issues in the past where it's not really retrieving the last 2 to 3 quarters. So there are some data quality problems that I'm seeing here. Also, how it's calculating the growth rates, I would be more specific as far as how I wanted to calculate those growth rates. You have to be very specific. But this is a huge, huge leap forward from the previous version where it couldn't access any of this data at all. Certainly couldn't do conversions from quarterly to trailing 12 months and couldn't do any type of trend analysis. And now we've gone from being able to do all of that, and even for it to spit out charts like I've shown you here, it actually drew the chart for me in terms of what the revenue versus EPS trends look like. So I can see, okay, over the last 3 months, this has been trending higher versus the last 8 quarters has been trending lower, right? So everything is trending in the right direction over the last few quarters versus the last 2 years. That's kind of what I want to see if I'm, making a bullish investment or vice versa. I want to know what the current trends are for the financial statements. And, to do that analysis, it takes quite a bit of time. And this is why research analysts on Wall Street work 80-hour weeks and get paid $250,000 a year to do this research, because it's brutal work. It's tedious, and it takes a lot of time. It takes expertise to understand how to use the data, pull the data, analyze the data, and then draw conclusions off of that. Here, I basically have ChatGPT doing it for me for free. It takes a little bit of time of building these prompts and doing it the right way, but you can get 95% of the way there without having to wait for an analyst to get back to you. If you were at a bank, you'd ask the analyst, they'd probably take a few days to get back to you with some of this data. Here, you prompt ChatGPT, and in a few seconds, you get the data you're looking for. Like I said, this is not quite where I need it to be just yet. There's some data quality issues that I have found, so you do want to be very cautious and validate the data that you're looking at before you make any investment decisions. When they do improve this, and like I said, I've only played with this for a few days. I've been trying to build a prompt for this, to a single prompt that I can share with you that you can just copy and paste and have it run. I haven't gotten to that point yet, but if I do, I promise I will share that with you here as well. Like I said, this is likely going to be the first of many in this particular series of showing you how the new version of ChatGPT have significantly improved your ability to interact with it across multiple mediums and help you become a better trader. And I'm really looking forward to when it's able to do some analysis for me on the fundamental side, and even pull, I'll even show you a conversation that I have with ChatGPT on Magnificent Seven. I basically asked it to pull me all the financial data for the Magnificent Seven stocks, Apple, Amazon, Alphabet, Meta, Microsoft, Nvidia, and Tesla. I asked it to tell me what the forward PE ratio is, what the expected growth rate is. And then I basically asked it to see, are there any stocks where the forward PE is greater than 25 times, and where the trends of those stocks are, and it's able to help me identify out of all of the companies where the EPS growth rate is less than 5%, but it was trading at a very high multiple. What I was trying to identify are overvalued stocks that weren't growing very fast, and Marvell, was the one that identified for me, identified multiple companies that kind of met my specific criteria, and then I was able to narrow it down to Marvell Technologies as the one, had enough, was large enough from a market cap perspective, met all the criteria that I was looking for in terms of it was very expensive from a valuation perspective, but analysts were expecting it to grow not very much over the next few years. And it basically was able to do all of that work for me, build kind of the trend, the revenue numbers, the EPS numbers, and draw me a chart of kind of what the trends are. So this was all just from a conversation that I was having with ChatGPT. And like I said, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There are so many things that you could potentially do with this. And I've been playing around with it for just about a week or so. And I'm really excited about what this can potentially bring for traders and really democratizing access to what has historically been data that really you had to either pay a lot of money for, or you have to have worked at an investment bank to access some of these research analysts to get access to this type of information. Now you can just talk to ChatGPT and get a lot of the similar information.